Welcome to The Poisoning, an AFP podcast. Episode 3. Hi, it's Navalny. I'm Jonathan Braun.
And I'm Andrea Palasciano. We're journalists working for the global news agency Agence France Presse in Moscow.
January 17, 2021. Alexei Navalny boards a plane in Berlin. Destination, Moscow. After 5 months in Germany recovering from a near-fatal poisoning, he's coming home.
Arrest me? That's impossible. I'm a Russian citizen with every right to go home. Everything will be perfect. Today I'm very, very happy.
My name is Nikolai Korzhov. I'm a video journalist working for AFP, and I was on the plane when Alexei Navalny was returning to Russia. As soon as he entered the plane, I realized how many journalists were there. Everyone got up and started filming him. And it was very chaotic. He was sitting by the window, his wife was sitting in the middle, and his press spokesperson was sitting by the aisle.
The plane landed in Moscow around 7 p.m. Alexei Navalny disembarked with his wife, Yulia. There's footage of them walking through the airport, holding hands.
I was basically running after him, filming. So he was talking to the border guard, and I think they took his passport. But then I saw 2 policemen approaching him from the other side. And he had to follow them to the other room. He gave a kiss to his wife. They hugged. I think she wiped his face, she kissed him. And he just left with the policeman.
This is the moment Russia's most outspoken opposition figure, Alexei Navalny, returned to Moscow and was immediately detained. He said he would come back even though he was facing jail time. What kind of person opts for a showdown like this with the Kremlin?
To understand, we spoke with an old friend of Navalny's, someone who chose not to return to Russia. His name is Sergei Guriev. He now lives in Paris, and this is where our colleague, Antoine went to meet him.
I'm going to meet Sergei Guriev. He's an economist. He's a professor at Sciences Po Paris.
Guriev fled Russia in 2013 because he felt threatened for his political views.
And he's a very close ally to Alexei Navalny. Bonjour, merci, vous pouvez vous installer ici. Okay.
Alexei is just a courageous person. This is what he does for a living. He stands up for his beliefs, for his values, even if that threatens his life. I think he's a hero of epical proportions.
To his supporters, Navalny is a hero. To the Kremlin, he's a dangerous revolutionary backed by the West. In this episode, we want to tell you more about him, who he is, and how he became Russia's loudest Kremlin critic.
Navalny was born in 1976 into an average family living in a small town outside Moscow. His father was an army officer and his mother an accountant. He grew up far from the social and political elite. He was a teenager when the Soviet Union collapsed. From early on, Navalny criticized communism and spoke in favor of a Western-style free market system. In 2000, when Vladimir Putin became president, Navalny was 24 years old. He had just trained as a lawyer and was getting his start in politics with the liberal opposition party, Yabloko.
But ultimately, traditional politics wasn't for him. By 2008, Navalny was in his early 30s and making a name for himself through a different form of activism. That's when he met Guriev.
Alexei tried different entry points into national politics, and one of those was through corporate activism.
Navalny would buy stakes in large state companies and use shareholder rights to push for transparency. At the time, Guriev was on the board of Sberbank, Russia's largest bank.
Alexei wrote to me saying, here is a suspicious transaction, and I would like you, the board member, the independent director, the representative of minority shareholders on the board of the state company, to get in touch with the management on my behalf as a shareholder. And that's exactly what I did. I thought that I'm elected as a representative of shareholders and I have to protect their interests. And that's how we started to talk. And that was 2008. Since then, we repeatedly met or talked distantly.
Navalny published his findings online and began posting combative political videos on YouTube. Along the way, he gained a loyal following. It's 2011, and Navalny is a key leader of huge demonstrations against Putin's party, United Russia. He addresses crowds of protesters who rally against election results they believe are rigged. He coined slogans like the party of crooks and thieves.
Say it. Did you vote for United Russia?
No.
Did you vote?
No.
What's this party called?
The party of crooks and thieves.
These demonstrations are some of the largest Russia has seen in years, and Navalny's role in them lays the groundwork for him to run for Moscow mayor 2 years later in 2013.
I think that there was the time that I understood that he's the person who's going to be the most interesting one in Russian politics for years.
Evgeny Feldman is a Russian photographer. He's been following opposition politics for more than a decade.
Navalny had some sort of media vacuum around him. I mean, there are not much media that are willing and able politically to cover him. All the state media ignore him, and therefore there's like a huge lack of coverage.
Despite this media vacuum, Navalny gets almost a third of the votes in the mayoral election. It's not enough to win, but the result is an embarrassment for the authorities. It's December 2016, a year and a half before presidential elections. Navalny announces he's going to run. He holds rallies across Russia and expands his network beyond the capital.
We're running to win, to change the authorities, to form a government and to work for citizens so they become richer, so their lives get better, so the quality of life improves, so tens of millions of people have prospects in life. That is what the country needs right now.
But Navalny is barred from running. Election officials justify the decision, pointing to an old fraud conviction. This is what he told our AFP colleagues in January 2018 in response.
Putin wants to be emperor of Russia for life. It's his goal. His entourage, who became billionaires and the world's richest individuals, they want the same thing. That's why the political fight is about more than this election.
Navalny calls for a boycott of the election. Putin wins anyway.
When Navalny says the fight isn't just about elections, he's pointing to a key component of his career. In 2011, he created the Anti-Corruption Foundation, or FBK. Its aim is to highlight official corruption through detailed investigations posted on YouTube. Now is when we discover another of Navalny's skills. Not only can he address massive crowds, he knows how to harness social media. Here's what Maria Lipman told me. She's a political analyst at George Washington University who lives in Moscow.
Well, I think his talents also includes those of a showman. He's good at presenting. He's good on stage, if this can be described as stage. He has this talent of explaining complicated financial and corruption schemes simply. He's funny. And, he is able to keep people glued to the screen. This is a talent like any other, and he's got that talent as well.
A key part of Navalny's presence on social media is his family. Navalny posts regularly on Instagram about his wife, Yulia Navalnaya, and their 2 children. For Maria Lipman, this is partly political.
For any politician anywhere in the world, family matters. He appeared in this hospital nightgown with his wife, with his children, a beautiful daughter, very nice teenager. So that too matters, another factor that added to his attraction.
In June 2021, when Navalny was in prison, his 20-year-old daughter Darya accepted an award on his behalf from a group of NGOs. Her speech gave a glimpse of what their family life was really like.
I thought back to the time when I was 10 and my little brother was 3 years old and our apartment was raided by the police for the very first time. The confusion, fear, anxiety, and helplessness I felt were overwhelming. And the best plan that my 10-year-old panicking brain could come up with is to shove my laptop under my t-shirt and in my pants. With that little action, I helped my parents focus on the more important things instead of worrying about my homework on that laptop.
On Instagram, Navalny is a model politician. But there are corners of the internet that point to darker moments of his career. Navalny has left a trail online leading back to when nationalist rhetoric was a part of his political agenda. Much of it is still online. This pro-gun YouTube video, for instance, is from 2007.
Hello. Today we are going to talk about fighting insects.
Navalny presents himself as a, and I quote, certified nationalist. The video is a montage of animated monster insects and appears to compare them to Muslim militants from the Caucasus region.
But what do you do if the cockroach is too big or the fly is too aggressive? Well, in these cases, I suggest a gun.
Even some of Navalny's friends concede comments from this period were intolerant. Here's Guriev again.
So these videos are racist. So you can call those videos racist 15 years ago.
Lipman, the political analyst, has this to say.
Navalny is a born politician. And I think he realized this early in his life, that was his talent, that was his vocation. And he was looking for a niche for himself early on. And at some point, he realized that xenophobia is indeed fairly popular in Russia. People were apprehensive, people were suspicious. I think there is no need to explain that to a European audience.
Navalny has never apologized for comments he made in this period. But Guriev told us he believes Navalny has changed.
And I'm pretty sure that today Navalny is not sharing those views, and so he's supporting citizen nation.
Guriev told us that when he spoke to Navalny a month before his return to Russia, he was voicing very different views.
We talked about media freedom, judiciary independence, reform of competition authorities. We also talked about diversity and inclusion. He talks about the need to create a civil nation, a citizen nation, rather than an ethnic nationalist country. So today, I would say, if we use Western platforms, Navalny would be closer to Democratic Party in the United States and probably center-right, center-left in Europe.
When it comes to getting his ideas across to Russians, the odds are stacked against Navalny. Yes, he has a huge following on social media, but he's barred from state TV, which is a crucial platform. His allies say the ban is a key obstacle to building Navalny's popularity. This is Valery Fedorov, the head of the state-owned pollster Vtsiom. He told me that by September 2021, trust for Navalny among Russians was around 3%.
чуть больше симпатии ему со стороны молодого поколения.
There is a little more sympathy for him from the younger generation who are starting their lives. For them, moral values, honesty matter more than for the older generation that lived through the 90s. But this young generation is not very politicized, and it easily switches from politics to other themes. In January, they were worried about Navalny. Today, he is long forgotten.
And you don't have to look too hard for people who don't trust him. When I went to Pokrov, Navalny's prison, in March, it was freezing. And I spoke to residents there who were more sympathetic to the Kremlin than to the European leaders who were calling for him to be freed.
We don't care which prison he's in. What matters is that he's in prison for what he's done.
The authorities agree. Officials routinely describe Navalny as a criminal. Here's Piotr Tolstoy again. You may remember him from episode 2. He's a senior member of Putin's party, United Russia.
The story of Navalny is the story of someone who's lost all sense of proportion. He broke the law and went to prison. It's a shame because this boy could have been an interesting figure in Russian politics. But he chose to fight against, as he says, the blood-soaked regime, and to fight by any and all means. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way in civilized countries.
You've heard Navalny described as a hero, as a nationalist, as a criminal. Still, he has become the loudest out of a dwindling group of Kremlin opponents. This is Feldman again, the photographer who has covered Russian politics for a decade.
On the distance of the time I've been following Russian opposition, clearly shows that Navalny and the personality he has is the only way for an opposition leader to be in Russia.
Feldman gave a striking list of the names of opposition politicians he photographed 10 years ago. People either killed, exiled, or forgotten. Navalny, he says, is the only one still fighting.
So theoretically, there is more room for opposition, possibly, but there is no other leaders who are still independent and popular and, well, alive and still in Russia. There is none except for Navalny. And I guess that all the character features he has make him this only person. Yeah, he might be not that empathic or calm down or polite or whatever, but yeah, that works. And there's no other example of what would work.
What is it about Navalny that makes people follow him on the streets and online? What is it that gathers these crowds? What draws millions to his YouTube channel? Before Navalny was sent to prison, he kept his last card up his sleeve, the Palace. This is the soundtrack to what he called the biggest bribe in history.
Russia is so corrupt, the investigative journalism sector is huge. So Navalny's foundation is most successful and best known. So there is a lot of work for everybody. But Alexei's foundation is again best known also because they do the best cinematic, mediatic job. They create a product that is not just important to watch, it's also fun to watch.
Join us for episode 4, The Palace. Thanks for listening to AFP's long-form podcast, The Poisoning. We hope you enjoyed the episode.
If you liked it, tell your friends and rate it wherever you're listening. For more from AFP, follow us on Twitter and Instagram. From Moscow, I'm Jonathan Braun.
And I'm Andrea Palasciano. See you in episode 4.